The sky over Nerelis burned red the day Commander Elias Ward made a choice that changed the galaxy. The war had dragged on for 7 brutal years. Humanity's entry into the Coalition War was sudden, unexpected, and savage. The Ixari Dominion had underestimated Earth, many had. Now, both sides bled under binary suns across dozens of contested systems. Nerelis, for was one such world. Strategic, hellish, and packed with civilian settlements caught in the crossfire. Elias had been deployed with Recon Unit Delta 7 to assist with evacuation. The plan was simple: secure the sector, extract survivors, burn the site if needed. But War didn't care for plans. The artillery blast hit their dropship before they even touched the ground. Of the 8-man team, only 3 made it to cover: Elias, Sergeant Boone, and Specialist Keller. Status: Elias hissed, ducking behind a crumbled pillar of alien stone. Boone spat blood, half of his helmet missing. Pilot's gone. Comms are fried. We're stuck. Enemy positions? Keller peeked over their barricade. Thermals show 20+ incoming. No friendlies within 10 clicks. We're screwed, sir. But Elias wasn't listening anymore. His HUD had picked up a faint life sign: non-human, weak. Civilian? He rerouted visuals and zoomed in. A girl. Maybe 13 by human standards, though her blue skin and ridged temples marked her as Nerillian. She was trapped beneath debris, eyes wide, barely moving. Her fingers were stained with blood, clinging to a shattered piece of glowing stone. "Sergeant," Elias said, tapping Boone's shoulder. "Hold position. I'm going." "You're out of your damn mind." "That's an order." Elias sprinted through broken ruins and plasma fire, weaving between charred structures and the bones of alien architecture. Explosions thundered nearby. He dropped to his knees beside the girl, tossing his rifle to sling her over his shoulder. She was whispering something. He didn't understand the language, but he caught the word Teyari. A name, perhaps? He activated a beacon, short range, desperate, barely functional. Then he ran, heart pounding, cradling her small form like it was the last piece of innocence left in the universe. Hours later, air support finally arrived. Elias had dug in, rifle empty, blade bloody, body torn, but still standing. The girl was alive. The evac teams pulled them out just as the next wave of Ixari descended. No one praised him. In the grand scale of war, saving a single alien child meant nothing. Command debriefed, demoted him for abandoning formation, and reassigned him to a desk job. Eventually, the war ended. Medals were handed out like candy. Elias wasn't among the honored. He never saw the girl again. 10 years passed. Now, Elias lived a quiet life on Vesta Prime. A little farm. A rusted old droid he called Rusty. He never married, never returned to service. Some nights he'd look up at the stars and wonder if she'd survived, if she even remembered the human who'd saved her. Then one morning, everything changed. It began with a sound, low, thrumming, metallic. His windows shook. Rusty beeped in confusion and hobbled to the porch. Elias followed, blinking against the sunlight. A ship hovered above his fields. Sleek, jet black, markings unfamiliar, not Coalition, not Earth-made. Before he could react, a voice echoed in his mind. Not spoken, projected. "You are Elias Ward, former commander of Recon Delta 7. You saved the last heir of House Varelia. Step forward." He stared, mouth dry. "What?" The ship descended, landing with the grace of a whisper. A ramp extended. From within, 2 armored figures emerged, tall, regal, and unmistakably Nerillian. Between them walked a third figure. She looked older now, taller, adorned in royal robes, a crown-like circlet resting on her brow. Her skin was a richer shade of cerulean, and her violet eyes glowed with restrained power. But it was her, the girl, the one he'd carried through fire. She stepped forward. "Elias Ward," she said, her voice clear and strangely commanding. "You saved me when I was no one. Today, I return as Empress of the Nerillian remnant." Elias took a breath, struggling to reconcile the memory with the reality before him. "You're alive," he said dumbly. She smiled faintly. "Because of you." Her guards tensed as she continued walking, straight to him. She stopped just an arm's length away. "By the sacred bond of Teyari, a debt that binds us across stars, I have come to fulfill the ancient rite." He raised an eyebrow. "What rite?" She didn't blink. "Kneel, human," she said softly. You are now the consort of the Empress. The world fell silent. Elias didn't kneel. Not yet. He stood still, locked in a stare with the tall, regal alien girl. No, woman, who now called herself Empress. His brain tried to process the layers of insanity unfolding before him. Her ship, her guards, her title, and her words. Consort. I'm sorry, Elias said slowly, trying to remain respectful. But did you just say I'm your consort? The two armored guards stiffened. Their posture screamed offense, maybe even insult. But the Empress raised a hand, silencing them without looking. Her eyes never left his. You saved my life, she said. That act is more than kindness in our culture. It is a blood oath. Sacred. And I was of royal blood, even if I had been hidden from the world. Elias rubbed the back of his neck. I didn't know that. I just saw a kid trapped in rubble. And that's exactly why the right applies. Selfless protection of a royal heir, without expectation of reward, triggers the ancient Teyari bond. Our laws are very clear. He scoffed, half laughing now. So what? You tracked me down after 10 years to make me. What? Your husband? The word hung awkwardly in the air. The Empress tilted her head slightly, as if analyzing his tone more than his question. In your human terms, yes. Elias took a step back. His hands lifted instinctively, as if fending off a conversation more dangerous than a plasma grenade. Look, Your Highness, or Majesty, or whatever it is I should call you. You may call me Avera. He blinked. Avera? She nodded. That was my name before the war. It is the name I carried when you saved me. Elias looked at her. Truly looked. Past the regalia. Past the glowing eyes and imperial presence. There, behind the authority, behind the flawless posture, he saw her, shivering under rubble, clutching that broken shard of stone, whispering words she thought were her last. Damn it, he muttered. You were just a kid. I was 12 solar cycles, she said, which made me the equivalent of your 14. Old enough to understand what you did for me. Elias sighed and sat on the edge of his porch, motioning for her to sit. Her guards didn't like it, but again, a wave of her hand silenced them. She sat beside him, folding her legs with impossible grace. So now what, he asked. You just drop into my life, say some ancient law binds us, and expect me to follow you into your palace or whatever? Avera glanced at the field, golden and swaying in the wind. No, I came to offer you a choice. Elias raised an eyebrow. My people have suffered, she said. The Dominion shattered our world, but we've rebuilt from the ashes. We're stronger, but we need allies. Symbols. Legends. She looked at him. You are that legend. The human who braved the war to save one of us. Not for politics, not for gain, but because it was right. That is the kind of myth our people need. Elias chuckled darkly. I'm no myth. I'm a broken old soldier trying to keep a rust bucket droid from eating my tomatoes. Avera turned to him, her voice softening. And yet you never tried to capitalize on what you did. Never contacted the coalition, never gave interviews, never wrote a book. Didn't seem right. Exactly. That is what makes you worthy. He fell silent for a while. So did she. The wind was the only sound between them. Finally, Elias stood. All right, Avera. Say I agree. Say I kneel and become this consort. What does that even mean? Avera stood too, her voice becoming formal again. You would be protected, honored, granted the rights of royal status. You'd stand beside me in every court, every summit. You would be the human face of Nerelis to the stars. Sounds like a cage, Elias muttered. Her voice softened. It would only be one if you saw it that way. I did not come to trap you, Elias. I came because you are part of me now. Because I wanted you to see what your actions created. He looked up at her again. The girl he'd once carried through fire was now a queen, an empress. And somehow, she had never forgotten. Rusty rolled up awkwardly, his speaker crackling. Sir, foreign entities in garden. Should I detonate the potato patch? Elias waved the droid off. No, not yet. The guards raised eyebrows at that. Elias smiled to himself. All right, you said I had a choice. You do. He stepped forward until they were nearly face to face. Then here's my answer. I'll go with you. Not because of some ancient law, not because I'm your consort, and definitely not because I'm a legend. I'll go because you came back. You remembered. For the first time, Avera's imperial facade cracked. Just a little. Her smile was real. Grateful. He nodded. But if you expect me to kneel, I want coffee. Real coffee. None of that alien syrup crap. She actually laughed. A rare, musical thing. Done. A moment later, her guards raised their fists in ceremonial salute. The ramp opened again. Elias looked once more at his tiny home, the field, the old wooden sign that said *Ward Farm. He sighed. Well, Rusty, don't let the tomatoes win. Then he stepped aboard the ship. As it rose into the sky, bound for a world he hadn't seen in a decade, Elias couldn't help but wonder. What kind of empire needs a human? And what kind of empress comes back for one? The palace of Neralis was carved into the side of a crystalline mountain that shimmered like frozen starlight. Elias stepped from the landing craft into a hall of mirrors and light, ceilings etched with constellations unfamiliar to him. Alien nobles bowed as Avera passed. They merely stared when Elias followed. He'd been cleaned, clothed, and draped in ceremonial cloths within an hour of arrival. The bath was far too hot, the robes too silky, and the food at dinner too squishy. But what unsettled him most were the eyes. Thousands of them. Some looked curious, others confused. Most looked offended. Avera noticed it too. She stood beside him, poised and statuesque, her hand resting lightly on the hilt of a ceremonial blade she didn't need. But her voice in his ear was gentle. You are among wolves, Elias. Do not show your neck. Didn't plan to, he muttered, tugging at the golden collar around his neck. They walked through the grand assembly hall, a circular chamber where nobles from every Teyari region gathered. Towering banners of shifting light floated in the air, each one representing a house. When Avera entered, all bowed deeply. When Elias followed, no one did. A tall male stepped forward. His skin was darker blue, his posture severe. Robes of silver cascaded from his shoulders, and his eyes burned with disdain. Your Radiance, he said smoothly. We were not informed that your consort would be joining us today. Elias didn't like the way he said consort, like it tasted foul in his mouth. Avera replied with regal calm. That is because I do not require your permission to bring my bond partner into any chamber of this court, Chancellor Vedrix. Vedrix's gaze flicked to Elias. Of course. And yet, one wonders what experience a human soldier has in matters of interstellar governance. Elias smiled dryly. Well, I've got some experience with lies, betrayal, and backstabbing. Pretty sure that qualifies. A few nobles gasped. Avera hid her smirk. Barely. Vedrix's eyes narrowed. Clever tongue for a man dressed in foreign robes. And sharp ears for someone trying to whisper rebellion. Elias shot back. Silence. A cold one. Avera stepped between them. Enough. She took Elias by the arm and led him away as murmurs spread behind them like fire. You should have let me throw a punch, Elias whispered. And let them paint you a savage, she replied. No. You won more by not drawing blood. They walked down a long balcony that overlooked a sea of clouds. Twin moons shimmered in the distance. Elias leaned on the railing and exhaled. I don't belong here, Avera. I'm a farm boy with scars and a loud mouth. You're the only one in this palace who didn't earn their place through bloodlines or bribes. That makes you dangerous. Elias shook his head. Why do they hate me so much? Avera was quiet for a moment. Because you represent something that makes them afraid. Change. A human at the Empress's side means a future not controlled by ancient names. He looked over at her. And what do you want, Avera? What's the real reason you brought me here? She met his eyes. Because I trust no one else. That night, he didn't sleep. He sat in the guest quarters, lavish by any standard, and stared at the stars through the open arch. His old jacket, the one patched and burned, had been cleaned and placed on a pedestal. A relic, they called it. He didn't feel like a relic. He felt like bait. At midnight, the lights flickered. He froze. Rusty's voice crackled through a hidden earpiece. Sir. Intruder detected. Hallway 2. Fast movement. Elias stood instantly. No weapons in sight. He grabbed a decorative blade from the wall. Thin, ceremonial, useless. Still, better than bare fists. The doors blew open. 3 figures in black armor surged in, silent and fast. Assassins. Elias didn't wait. He threw the blade into the first one's throat and tackled the second, driving them into the stone. The third lashed out with an energy whip that grazed his side, searing pain, but Elias grabbed the attacker's wrist and twisted until bones popped. Security, he shouted. Too late. But then, a scream of energy. Avera. She stormed in wearing combat armor, twin daggers glowing in her hands. In a blur, she dispatched the last assassin with a slice across the chest. They collapsed, gasping. "Why are you here?" Avera demanded, kneeling beside one of them. "Who sent you?" The dying figure wheezed, blood pooling beneath him. "Chancellor. Vedrix." Then he died. Avera stood. Her face had changed, icy, murderous. "I warned them," she muttered. "I told them." Elias, clutching his side, grimaced. "So much for palace security." She turned to him, saw the wound. "You're hurt." "Yeah, but your carpet's worse." She stepped close. "We need to move you." "No, we need to act. They want me dead because I'm close to you." She met his gaze. "Yes." He stepped forward, blood staining his side. "Then let's show them what happens when you attack a human in their sleep." Avera stared at him for a moment, then nodded. "The coronation ceremony is in 2 days," she said. "Every noble house will be there, including Vedrix." Elias smirked. "Guess I better practice my kneeling." "No." She placed her hand on his heart. "Next time, they will kneel." The grand coronation hall was older than most planets Elias had set foot on. It was said the throne of Teyari had been carved from the bone of a fallen star beast, and the marble floor was inlaid with the crushed gemstones of 100 conquered worlds. As he stood beneath the vaulted glass dome, Elias couldn't help but feel like a ghost in someone else's legend. And yet every eye was on him. He wore a hybrid uniform, part traditional Earth military black, part flowing Teyari royal trim. Across his shoulder was the mark of the Empress's consort. On his hip, a ceremonial blade gifted by Avera. But beneath the calm, he was tense. Watching, waiting. He knew something was coming. The assassins hadn't been a random act of hate. This was a warning. And today, someone planned to finish the message. The nobles gathered like a garden of predators, colorful robes, exotic jewels, expressions cold and unreadable. Vedrix stood closest to the dais, his silver robes glinting with smug defiance. Elias made a mental note. If anything happened to Avera, Vedrix would die before the guards even blinked. The drums began. From behind the golden curtain emerged Avera. She wore armor woven with starlight thread, her crown a halo of ancient crystals. Her presence was beyond regal. She didn't walk. She commanded gravity. The crowd bowed. Every single one. Except Vedrix. And Elias. She stepped up the throne dais and paused beside Elias. "You remember what I said?" she asked softly. He nodded. "Don't show your neck." She smiled. "Good." The officiant stepped forward, a 10-foot alien priest with eyes like moons and a voice that echoed in the bones. "We gather under the stars of legacy to crown Avera, rightful heir of the eternal flame, protector of the spiral realms, and light of the Teyari people." The ceremony unfolded like a dance. Rituals were spoken, blood was shed, a shallow cut across her palm, and poured into a basin of light. Symbols glowed. Chants echoed. A crown descended from above on an energy field. Then came the final moment. The oath. The Empress-to-be would choose someone to receive the first oath of trust, a title reserved only for her closest ally. It was symbolic, meant to bind the realms in unity. Everyone expected her to name Vedrix. Instead, she turned to Elias. Gasps rippled across the chamber. "I choose Elias Grant," she said, voice clear. "Human, warrior, savior of my life, and now, protector of my throne." Vedrix stepped forward. "This is a farce." Guards moved instantly, but Avera raised her hand. "Let him speak." The chancellor sneered. "He is not of the blood. He has no house, no lineage, no title. He is a man from a backwater planet that once begged us for aid." Elias raised an eyebrow. "Begged? Pretty sure it was your empire that needed our troops when the Korik invaded. You twist history." "No, I lived it." Avera stepped down, slow and deliberate, until she stood between Elias and Vedrix. She spoke loudly, for all to hear. "Chancellor Vedrix, when the palace was attacked 3 nights ago, did you not say you were on pilgrimage?" Vedrix stiffened. "I did. And yet," she continued, "the assassin who lived long enough to speak gave your name as the one who ordered the strike. How curious." The silence was suffocating. "You cannot believe the word of a dying criminal over a noble," Vedrix said, jaw tight. "I do not." She raised her hand. A holographic recording played above the throne. It was from the assassin's helmet cam. Glitchy, distorted, but clearly showed Vedrix's private crest being scanned at a weapons drop point. The crowd hissed. Vedrix reached for his belt. Elias was already moving. He tackled the Chancellor as a hidden blade extended from his robe. They crashed into the stairs, Elias slamming his forearm across Vedrix's throat. "Still think I don't belong here?" Elias growled. Guards swarmed, dragging Vedrix away as he spat and cursed. Nobles backed up, afraid, whispering. Some looked at Elias with horror. Others, especially the younger ones, looked with respect. The ceremony resumed in hushed awe. Avera took the throne. The crown locked into place. And then she reached out and pulled Elias to stand beside her. "The age of bloodlines ends today," she declared. "From now on, loyalty and honor determine one's place at this court. Let all who oppose this be marked as enemies of the throne." Cheers erupted, hesitant at first, then rising. Avera leaned to Elias. "That twist was bold, was it not?" He nodded. "Almost too bold." Just then, a message buzzed in his earpiece. "Sir," Rusty's voice said, crackling. "New transmission detected. It's not from this system." Elias blinked. "Where's it from?" "Earth." He froze. "Put it through," he said quietly. A single line appeared on his retinal HUD. "Elias Grant, stand by. Earth Command has dispatched a delegation. High urgency. And a warning, you are not alone in this galaxy." His stomach tightened. Avera noticed the change in his face. "What is it?" He turned to her. "We've got company coming," he said. "And they're not here for tea." The grand hall had never been more still. Avera sat at her throne, eyes scanning the room, feeling the weight of the crown on her head. Elias stood beside her, a human soldier with the trust of the Empress, and now, the full weight of a galaxy staring back at him. The message from Earth had shaken him. Earth Command, the very people who had sent him to this place a decade ago, now sent word of something he couldn't yet understand. Their delegation was on its way. But that warning, "You are not alone in this galaxy," echoed in his mind. They weren't alone. He glanced at Avera, whose expression was unreadable. She had already sensed the shift in the air, the tension in the room as the delegates whispered among themselves. A world-changing truth was about to be revealed. The Earth delegation arrived in the early hours of the next day, their ships entering the Teyari system with military precision. No fanfare, no pomp, just cold, calculated arrival. Avera's eyes met Elias's as the doors to the throne room opened. The Earth delegation had arrived. They weren't what Elias expected. No politicians, no diplomats. Instead, armored soldiers with human insignia on their uniforms marched into the hall, their faces grim. The leader, a tall woman with short-cropped hair, stepped forward and saluted Elias. "General Grant," she said, "we've come as ordered." Elias raised an eyebrow, his heart pounding in his chest. "Ordered? By who?" The woman turned, motioning for her team to place something on the floor. The object was covered in a dark, tarp-like material, but Elias knew what it was before the covering was removed. A series of ships, more massive than any fleet he'd seen, slowly emerged from the shadows. "You weren't supposed to know," the woman said, her voice cold. "But Earth Command has deemed it necessary to send a message. This is our fleet, Elias. The fleet that's been secretly built over the last decade." Avera's gaze hardened. "Built for what?" "For you," the woman replied. "For your war. For this war." The weight of her words sunk into Elias's bones. The fleet wasn't here for peace or diplomacy. It was here for battle. Elias stepped forward, his voice low but fierce. "I don't know what you think this is, but we're not preparing for another war. I'm standing beside the woman who holds this throne, and we are not your soldiers." The Earth commander gave him a sharp, calculating look. "You've been marked, General. Your place here, your position beside the Empress. It's not just for her cause anymore. It's for Earth's cause. And Earth's cause is now your cause." Avera rose from her throne, eyes blazing. "No, my cause is Teyari, and as long as I sit on this throne, I will not bow to Earth or anyone else." The tension in the room thickened, the nobles shifting uncomfortably as the Earth Fleet commander stepped forward. "The war we've fought to prepare for is one against the Dominion," she said, her words heavy with meaning. "You're not the only ones who've been watching. We've seen what's coming." The room fell silent. Elias's thoughts raced. "The Dominion?" he asked, his voice tight. "The alien threat you warned us about during the war?" The woman nodded. "They've already begun infiltrating our territories. We had to take action. Earth's fleet is here, and it's ready to fight. The weight of those words hung in the air like a storm cloud. Avera's fists clenched. Are you telling me you expect me to lead this war, Elias? She asked, her voice trembling with restrained fury. That my throne, my people, will be dragged into this war? Elias could see the war in her eyes. She wanted to protect Teyari, her people, her land, her crown. But he understood now what Earth was really offering. They were offering him a chance to fight. For them. Not your people, the Earth Commander said. Your people have already chosen their side. Now, you must choose, Earth or Teyari. You can't have both. The words hit like a fist to his gut. Elias's heart raced. Avera's gaze pierced his, and for a moment, he saw something in her eyes that he hadn't seen before, a flicker of fear. General Grant, the commander continued, this is your war now. We've built an army. The Dominion has only just begun to show their hand, and they're powerful. You've seen their methods, their reach. Elias turned to Avera, his mind spinning. This wasn't just about loyalty to her, to Teyari. This was bigger than he could have imagined. Earth had been preparing for a war that was already on the brink of spreading across the stars. The Dominion. They had been waiting, hidden in the shadows, building their strength, watching from afar. He didn't want to make a decision. He didn't want to choose between Avera and his home. But now, it seemed like the choice was being made for him. I can't choose between you, Avera, he whispered, the words feeling like a betrayal. Avera's eyes softened for a moment, but she didn't flinch. Then don't. The Earth Commander's expression twisted into a cold smile. You don't have a choice anymore, General. The war is here, and Earth will not back down. This is your chance to show the galaxy who you really are. Elias stepped forward, looking at the fleet outside. The ships stretched beyond the horizon, and all at once, the weight of the situation became clear. He had saved Avera. He had kept his promise to her. But now, the price of that promise was becoming more complicated than he could have imagined. He looked at Avera, her eyes filled with both sorrow and resolve. There was no going back from this. I didn't come here to conquer. I came to protect. But if Earth wants a war, then I'll fight, Elias said, his voice firm. The room was still as death, the eyes of thousands of nobles and soldiers watching as Elias stepped toward the Earth Fleet Commander. I'll fight for the people I care about, he said. But I'll fight on my terms, not anyone else's. Avera stepped down from the dais and walked toward Elias. Her voice, though soft, was filled with a strength that matched his. We'll fight, Elias. But we'll do it together. Earth doesn't get to decide what happens next. We do. The Earth Commander nodded, but there was no joy in her expression. Then let's see if you're strong enough. This was the turning point. Elias had made his choice, but in doing so, he had set the stage for a war like no other. Teyari had never faced an enemy like the Dominion, and the galaxy had never known what a human could truly do when they had nothing left to lose.